Hi, thank you so much for showing up. My name is Werner. I'm Director of Sales for North America, and I also got Robin Mayoff with me, who's the Director of Technical Support. He will actually be showing you a demo of Retrospect. So I have some slides I will fly through here so we can get over to him. But really, the whole thing here is to make sure that we can quickly explain to you and help you understand how simply Retrospect can be utilized to enable you to provide a complete, centralized, secure data protection solution for your environment. In addition, if you guys haven't heard already, this year we have been acquired by StoreCentric, which is going to allow us to, moving forward, offer solutions for both small business, larger businesses, and software and hardware across the board moving forward. So a lot of cool things moving forward. And again, you're going to find this is a very, very simple solution that allows you to provide a complete data protection solution for your environment. Now, why backup? Oh, just, before we go, we do have, if you have any questions as we go along, everybody's in a mute mode, feel free to ask as we go, and we'll answer them as we're doing it. If not, wait when the demo's going, and if you got questions during the actual demo, ask. I will get that over to Robin, and he will answer as we go along. So we will get this deck and information uploaded, so you also have access to it at a later point for reference or to be able to utilize as you need. So why backup? Obviously, the important thing is to make sure that your data is protected nowadays with data sitting on desktop, laptops, and your emails, files, attachments. It's critical to make sure that regardless of where the data is sitting and regardless of what can happen to it, that you've got a complete solution implemented. So whether it's an accident, I know I constantly am, let's see, I've had one laptop stolen. I've had one where I've dumped coffee on it. I had one where I did the incorrect update. I had to roll it back. I had a drive blowout on me once. So regardless if it's just a pure accident as you're going along, if it's maybe you have a single file. I actually updated one the other day with the holidays coming up. We got a program that my wife utilizes to actually print out cards and stuff. And they sent out a link, and I said, "Hey, update this." And then, of course, I'm always the latest to first one to upgrade things, as they come out, because I got the confidence of my backup behind me. But I click on it, which proceeded to shut down the entire program. And next day, I get an email saying, "Hey, sorry about that. Yeah, we sort of messed up on our update, and it seems to have broke everything. We're working on it." So, as opposed to explaining to her how we no longer can print out cards for the holidays, I quickly went to my previous backups and was able to do a restore. So nowadays, again, you need to make sure that whether it's a single file like I do, whether it's a drive failure, whether it's a natural disaster, you got fires going on the West Coast. There's power outages going on and off in California, whether it's tornadoes coming up the central country or floods in the south, hurricanes on the East Coast, pick your place and you got another disaster to prepare for. And with all that, you want to make sure that you're backing up everything. You're making sure that that data that has been backed up is redundant and available when needed. And then in addition to just the natural disasters and general failure of hardware or mistakes, is nowadays we get to deal with malware and ransomware as well. I don't know how many filters our emails go through before they get to us, but it's quite a bit too many. But unfortunately, it's a necessary evil nowadays. But when you're dealing with all this, with ransomware, the important thing is you want to make sure you're backing up everything. So regardless of where the data is sitting, whether it's on a laptop, whether it's your emails that need to be backed up, and whether it's your servers, databases, regardless of where it is, or maybe it's shared storage. Maybe you have a NAS system where you got a bunch of shared files sitting out on a volume. You want to make sure you're backing up everything. You want to make sure you're retaining it for a certain amount of period. You want to make sure that if in fact you don't notice that malware, ransomware hit for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, that you're retaining that data and you can go back and restore it from a month previous, 2 weeks previous. I actually downloaded a program a year or so ago, and just trying to get a new location service type of thing. And when I downloaded it, the very next backup I did the next day, when my computer was kind of running a little sluggish, I noticed it was like 100,000 plus files had changed. So I hadn't done anything special other than that one download and realized I must have downloaded some malware. So I actually went to my previous point in time and said, you know what, here's what my system looked like the day before, and I'm going to restore back everything at that point. I restored it all back, got it up and clean. And then with Retrospect, nice thing is, even though I got my full recovery at that point, I was still able to go, you know what, I know I was working on a couple other files yesterday as well, minus that. And I was able to restore back those targeted files as well. So to retain the data, I said, I fortunately knew when I had done that, you know, I knew when I updated my file and stuff. But if in fact you're sitting there going, I don't know exactly when I had actually backed up this data, to make sure that you're going, okay, if I need to restore back some tax files from 6 months ago, that you retain the data long enough that you can still recover that back as far back as you need to go, whether it's a compliance issue or not. Or just need to be able to restore back. Maybe you don't look at it on a daily basis other than looking at the reports, so you want to make sure that if something happens that you are aware of it. And copies, making sure you have multiple copies. So if in fact, you know, nowadays with, again, data sitting on a RAID array or just a couple external drives, you know, and you get ransomware or malware that actually takes over that network, it can actually lock up everything on that network, anything attached to that network. So the fact that you go, well, I got everything sitting over here on this RAID array, that may not be good enough anymore. You need to make sure you have a secondary copy, you have an additional copy that's disconnected to the network, one that is no longer going to be accessible from that one. So that way, if in fact everything gets locked up, you say, you know what, we're not paying any ransomware. We'll go to our backups. We have it offsite. We have it in the cloud, and we'll restore everything we need from there to get up and going again. So the recommended recommendation nowadays is having the 3-2-1 backup strategy. So very easy to remember. You want 3 copies of your data. So make sure that if in fact something happens to one set, maybe you have your local RAID and you got a couple drives rotating on and off site, you know, to make sure you have that redundant copy, that if in fact even there's a local failure that takes out 2 of the copies, you're good. If in fact you have your multiple copies up on a cloud one, and maybe you have one on cloud, one on tape, and one on disk. Maybe you just have 3 disks. Maybe you have multiple copies on different cloud targets. Wherever that data happens to be, make sure you have that 3rd redundant copy available in case there's a local disaster. Now, also, the nice thing about Retrospect, just so you know, is that we simply, and we'll get into it in a few, we make it very simple for you to make these redundant copies because of our snapshot capabilities. So we'll get into that. So very simple to do. Storage devices, when you're having these redundant copies, as I was just mentioning, don't put them on that same storage. If you have a disk array, if you're backing up to your server, that with your storage, and don't have both sets of the copy, because if in fact that goes out, you lose access to it, it fails for whatever, hardware otherwise, you can lose both copies of the data or multiple copies of it. Make sure that you have one set sitting on disk, another one on tape, or maybe one on cloud. But something to where if in fact you lose access to the cloud, for internet loses access, you lose power outside the network, then you know, that you still have that ability to go in there and recover from your secondary set of media. And make sure that one set of the data is sitting offsite. So again, disconnected from that network. So if in fact there's a local disaster, fire, you know, again, as I mentioned about that school, you know, the fact that you have another copy, you know, 500 meters away or even in another building is not good enough. You want to make sure you have something disconnected. You want to make sure that if in fact something, that one school now has it in 3 different cities. So if in fact something happens, they know they can recover from their other offsite data. They're also looking at the clouds to make sure that they're also backing up the data to a cloud target as well. Obviously, the advantage of going to local disk, you're going to have speed, you're going to have easy access to it. The advantage of going off to a cloud target is, again, the versatility of it. downside, obviously, is pipeline, the amount of storage you'll need, everything else. So the nice thing is with Retrospect, we make it very simple for you to have with our flexible media options, which means that if you have tape, we can back up to tape. We can back up to tape or tape library. We can back up to disk, whether that's direct attach, NAS, SAN, RAID array, a flash drive, or cloud-based disk targets. So again, whatever combination of them, you don't have to sit there and say, well, we'll use this for tape, this for disk, whatever. With Retrospect, you say, great, here's the combination. We want at least 2 of these types here to provide the 2 storage options. And we want to have one disconnected, again, whether those are rotating disks on and offsite, tapes on and offsite, or a cloud target. Retrospect makes it very simple to make sure that when you have data that cannot be replaced, that you can still have access to it from that additional copy. We make it very simple from storage devices. Said the fact is, again, if you're targeting a specific disk target and you have both of your copies sitting on that one target, that doesn't count, because again, if in fact something happens to that, and that includes cloud targets as well, if in fact you lose access to it, if your hardware fails, that you want to make sure that you have it sitting on a secondary one. Again, if you have a tape library and your tape library goes out, and it may take you another 4 weeks to be able to get a replacement unit, if that soon with tape and stuff. So again, to make sure that you have your backups available to you on a second set of media is very, very important nowadays. Make sure you have multiple RAID arrays. So you have one off-site, so when you do your initial backup locally, you can take that data and transfer it off to that off-site one. And again, and make sure they're independent of each other. We actually had somebody that called in and said, well, here's what we do. We have our initial backup on our RAID, and then we sync it off to this one, and we sync it off to the other side, and we sync it off to this site. So there you go. We got 4 copies. Like, except that you're utilizing syncing software to do it, which is a great way to move it site to site. But the problem is, if in fact something gets corrupt on the initial one, you can push that same corruption site to site to site. So I go along that way in that path. You want to make sure you're doing a backup that's, again, backed up and allows you to restore at any given point. So even if those synced copies of the data, and again, offsite data gets corrupt, you still have that ability to say, it's okay, we have a backup from last night. Yeah, maybe a couple hours late because all the synced ones are messed up, but that's okay. We'll be able to restore back from that point. And again, from multiple locations, as I mentioned, again, very, very important that you have those multiple locations. Again, whether you're syncing it site to site, like I said, you can utilize Retrospect, do backups that transfers from one site to another, or go from a disk to disk to a tape target. You can go from tape off to cloud. However you want to do it, said make sure that you have an offsite data protection solution in place as well. So again, all this is where Retrospect really is going to make life easy for you, because again, with our snapshot ability that allows you to do these multiple redundant copies, very, very simple. It's going to be a go-to solution for you to implement that 3-2-1 backup strategy. And in addition, it's a hybrid solution. So we have both Mac and Windows Edition. Our clients could be either Mac, Windows, or Linux. So within these environments, you don't need separate solutions for each part of your solution. You can sit there and say, great, we have some laptops, we have servers, we have virtual, we're backing up to tape, we're thinking of going to disk and moving off to cloud. And you can very simply do that all with Retrospect. We can do backup and recoveries, which again, full bare metal recoveries, full system backups, or we can be specific and targeted in regards to what it is we're doing and say, look, we want to back up this data. We want to move it off to this cloud target, but we don't want a full OSs and stuff. Yes, that's awesome. We could do bare metal recovery from this local disk. But when moving off to cloud, due to pipeline issues, the amount of storage we're going to need on a cloud point of view, we want to limit that. And so with Retrospect, you can say, great, we're going to do an initial full backup and then target specific data to move off. We can also target data right off the bat and say, look, we're never interested in the full OS. We just want to target specific data. We have some of our military ones that say, look, we're just worried about this security data, not the rest of the OS. So just target these files only, or media house or video where they're doing specific videos that they want to take and archive off for a long-term point of view. So with Retrospect, you be very exclusive or inclusive as needed. We have the ability to archive, as I was saying, to take that data and store it from a long-term point of view, whether it's an accounting firm done within a tax year, whether it's a construction firm done with a project, a law firm done with a case, whatever it is, to be able to take the data. Or, you know, we utilize, the Game Show Network utilizes Retrospect. So every time you see Family Feud, knowing that that data is being backed up, stored off, so if in fact they lose access to one of it, they know they can still get their data back. Or the Warner Brothers of the world, where they finish up a season of a show, they say, great, we want to take this stuff and we want to move it off site. So if in fact we need it, we can get to it, but we don't necessarily need to access it on a day-to-day basis anymore. Again, we have the ability to archive the data, again, onto disk, onto tape, or onto a cloud target. And we can duplicate data. So if in fact you have data sitting, and again, your plan is to, you know, have shared volume of, maybe it's all your music in one place, or your videos or photos or whatever it is that you guys are all sharing, or just documents that all the company's working on. You go and everybody moves their files over onto this server, and to be able to take that data and say, you know what, we're going to reach out, grab that volume with Retrospect and move it off onto a secondary disk target as well. Very, very important and very flexible solution for you to implement for your backup needs. As I mentioned about our smart incremental technology, we basically take a snapshot of the system. We say, here's exactly what it is we want to back up. So we're different in regards to, we don't rely on the archive bits and stuff. We actually say, look, here's what it is, what the system looks like at this point. We back up whatever files we need to be able to recreate those backups. The next time we take it back, we take a new snapshot or a catalog compared to the previous one and only back up the changes. What this allows us to do is that at any incremental backup point, we can do a full restore. Or you can say, you know what, I got 20 incremental backup points. I just lost my application, or I updated and messed up my application to do these printings and the card stuff, and I want to restore it back. I don't know exactly where I had backed it up. I know basically this was the name, Hallmark something. So to go there and say, over my last 20 backups, grab any one that starts with Hallmark and move it over into this folder. I'll pull back the correct application. You can be very targeted, very flexible, and again, all by utilizing the snapshot capability of Retrospect. It also is what allows us to make very easy and simple independent copies of each other's. So when we're doing a backup set, you go, and I want to do a backup set to my initial RAID. And then I want to do another backup set over to the cloud target and over to this disk. So I got my 3 redundant copies. Every time we do a new backup set, we actually take a snapshot. We say, what do we need on this set of media to be able to recreate this backup? And we do a full backup to it and then go into that incremental mode. What that means is that all those sets are independent of each other. So if in fact we lose access to one of them, we lose access to the main system, we can still do a full system recovery from either one of those other backup sets. So it makes it very, very simple for you. Instead of saying, well, here's our monthly copy and a weekly copy, and we got all of our weeklies or dailies over here, and then we need to have redundant copies of our monthlies to make sure we can do that, and then another redundant copy of all of our weekly. Now with Retrospect, you do a set A, a set B, and a set C, and then from there, you have those 3 independent sets that are not reliant on the other ones to do that restore. It also allows us to have built-in deduplication, which means that if in fact you take this one file here and you go, great, we all have Office and we got PowerPoint, we shared this PowerPoint presentation, we're going to back it up the first time and then just point to it after that. That catalog is going to compare it to the other catalogs with the backup set, say, you know what, we've already backed this up, we're not going to back it up over and over and over again. And with larger files like PST files or email files and VM files, VDMKs, all those ones where they're very large files, we have block level support. So if in fact you're backing up a large file, we see that there was a little change to it, but for the most part, the file stayed the same. We're only going to back up those block level changes. So efficient, powerful backup solution for your network. In regards to the media set or backup set, it's, again, really about having a bunch of independent containers for that backup data. Again, whether it's sitting out on cloud or disk or whatever, we can back up to pretty much almost any type of media, whether it's, again, RAID array, just a direct USB drive, multiple drives. We can do backups that transfers from one to another. We can back up to a local disk and then move that off to cloud, or we can just do a complete new backup to the cloud as well. So a lot of different flexibility in regards to what you can do with Retrospect. And again, each one is tracked independently and is separate from each other. Types of restores, we can, as I mentioned, be very specific about the kind of restores we do. We can, if you're backing the full system, we can do a full bare metal recovery. Or you can do a full backup and say, look, I just want to restore back my audio files. I just want to restore back this type files. I want to restore back any file that's between 50 megabytes and 100 megabytes that I backed up within the last week. I mean, extremely targeted in regards to what it is that you're able to back up and restore. We can back up and restore a complete volume. So if in fact you did say, look, you know, we have this RAID array over here, we backed it up. I know I have my RAID array where I got all my stuff centralized on it. And so I make sure I grab that data because I don't necessarily have that being backed up on my laptop anymore. I've moved music over there and all the stuff that's over flooding my laptop and said, great, take the data, grab my laptop, back it up. But also I got these volumes sitting out on this disk array over here, grab those and back those up as well. So I have a backup of that data. Database, Exchange, SQL, if you need to back up databases. And again, all of our backups and restores allow you to move them to whatever location that you want across the board. Said simply, Retrospect allows you to simply move the data from disk off to the cloud and vice versa back. You're in control of that data, where it's sitting, where it's going. So again, now with StoreCentric, we're really going to have this go-to solution across the board to say, look, and even moving forward to this next year in regards to implementing a cloud-based solution, to say wherever you want to move it, however you want to set it up, however you want to move it to get these redundant copies, we're going to allow Retrospect to get that hooked up for you. And the nice thing with when you're moving Retrospect, when you're moving data to cloud targets, is you can control where that data is going. If you had the data in Dropbox and you realize you got a better deal of Backblaze, you can transfer it there. And then all of a sudden Backblaze goes out of business. You go, you know what, let's shove that over to Wasabi. Retrospect allows you to move it from cloud to cloud target. Even if you're sitting there going, you know, we'd like to create our own private cloud target, you can actually create an S3 target, utilize Retrospect to move the data off to that private cloud and then restore it as needed. Nice thing is that we encrypt the data before we transfer, during transit, and at rest. So if somebody comes in and says, you know what, you just had your password that was compromised at Dropbox, you don't have to sit there and say, oh shoot, they got our data. You can just sit there and say, well, they got a bunch of Retrospect packets that are unable to be accessed because we're the only ones that have the de-encryption codes for it. So bringing it all together with Retrospect, it allows you to very simply implement this 3-2-1 disaster recovery solution by allowing you to do redundant copies, independent of each other, transferring to the location and media that you want, and with only needing one backup set to restore. And again, with accurate, 100% accurate restore. So when you are doing restores, you don't have to say, again, with that, like if I had a file that was backed up for 30 days in a row, you don't have to sit there and say, pull back every version of this file. You can say, no, I know on Monday it was all good before I started messing with it. So Monday, pull back that file and we can restore it exactly at that point without ever touching any other incremental backup. Now you add to that when you're backing up all this data, and they're sitting on with remote clients, or sitting out on for email clients, or sitting out on storage, wherever it happens to be. So you have multiple sites maybe going, you have 10 different distributed offices, whatever it is. Retrospect now also has a management console that allows you to centralize and aggregate all those backup servers into one window and pane. So not only can you back up the data very simply with the redundant copies and move the data off to cloud and storage targets, but it allows you to also manage this and centrally manage this from one web-based console. You can go in there, you can drill down within the different sites or organizations. If you're a reseller, it allows you to go in there and push scripts out. You can create a script to say, you know what, I want to have this one remote client sitting out here that works remote of the office, set them up. create a cloud target and make sure that we are backing them up both to his local disk and off to his cloud target. And let's also pull him back to the main office so we have a copy here as well. It also allows you to go in there and say, well, how much storage is available? When do we need more storage? When do we need to allow more access to say, okay, great, while we're doing these backups, we can see your local disk is getting full. So with Retrospect, again, you can fail over from one disk to another, which means they say, great, you now have 6 terabytes of storage and you have a 4 terabyte drive. Just say, go get another one, and we'll have it fail over from one drive to the next, as opposed to having to go get a brand new drive to back up to an 8 terabyte one. So very simple, whether you need to add additional storage, whether you need to expand what you're already doing, whether you need to add that independent media, you're going to find it very, very simple to do with Retrospect. So across the board, we got a lot of smart features, which makes it a very, very smart choice. Centralized management, cross-platform support, end-to-end security, scalable data protection. And that, the important thing about that is to understand that as you're doing these redundant copies and, sitting on disk, tape, cloud, whatever, and you're moving it from one to another and restoring it, archiving it long-term, we do not charge for the amount of data that's being backed up or moved. So as you're transferring from one cloud to another one, you may have a charge from the actual cloud provider themselves, but from Retrospect point of view, you will not have any charge. It doesn't matter if you're backing up, 10 terabytes or 50 terabytes. You can do that, restore it, and there will be no charge from a Retrospect point of view. It allows you to back up everything without the thing of, well, we need to limit it to, the first 200 gigs, because after that, they start charging us more. So with Retrospect, it allows you to protect everything very, very simply. Smart incremental backups, again, that allows you to very simply create these redundant copies, restores. They can either do a full system recovery or target a specific set of data. Built-in data deduplication, bare metal recovery, flexible destination. So when you do the restore, you can say, I want to restore it right to where it came from, or, restore it over to this folder. It will move back the files that we want. And again, extremely powerful filtering. I don't want to back up my cache files. I don't want to back up my music files or whatever. I just want to back up these specific documents or files and make sure that that gets put into 6 different locations. And again, so with Retrospect, you're going to find that if implemented correctly, you're going to be able to do it simply. You're going to make sure that when and if your data is needed, and hopefully you guys don't ever have to deal with disaster recovery, but unfortunately, it's getting more and more widespread, and it's very important nowadays that when you're in these scenarios that you have a complete secure solution, and you'll find that very, very simple to implement with Retrospect. So I'm going to get you over to the demo. If you have any questions, you got my email here. This actually goes to our sales team, whether you're looking for me or Jordan or Ian or Stuart, whoever it happens to be. Just email na-sales. Said we will be getting out this deck and everything to you shortly. The rest of the world, you can email sales@retrospect.com. They will, your local team will be able to reach out to you and help you out with any questions you have. We're going to be giving out a free 1-year subscription for unlimited premium edition. So we'll be doing a drawing and we'll reach out to the winners. So you got a lot of good wins. Again, we're very pumped, very excited about all the cool things we got coming out for you this year. I'm going to get this over to Robin now. Thank you guys so much for the time. I said I will be watching. So as you have any questions, type it in. I'll get that over to Robin and we will go from there. So thanks so much. Robin, it is all yours now.
Backblaze if you want to use Backblaze, but the Amazon S3 is Amazon S3 compatible. So we probably have a couple of dozen different Amazon S3 compatible services that you can use. You can also utilize Dropbox if you want to use Dropbox, and we won't talk about local storage today. And then I have to give it a path, and so I've got my credentials for Amazon already, so I'm going to go ahead and add these. I've got my Amazon path. I have my access key, which is a username, and then I have my secret key, which is like a password, and it's a big long password, and I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And if I'm going to the cloud, I would highly recommend encrypting it. I don't need to do that today, but I would highly recommend it for anything you do on the cloud. And then we're just going to say finish. And I'm going to go ahead and I don't need to select the offsite one right now, but I am going to select Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'm going to select my Tuesday, Thursday.
There is a
and
question.
Remember that.
Sorry, there's a question what cloud option you would utilize for Google. So
we do have a Google one, and I'm not looking at it right now. If you would, for Google, you would use the Amazon S3 option. So for Google Cloud, you would use the Amazon S3 compatible option. And if you go to retrospect.com and go to the support section and then go to knowledge base, there are tutorials or guides for each of the cloud services that shows you how to specifically set up each of the individual cloud services. So whether it's Dropbox or Backblaze or Wasabi, whatever you might be using, we have specific directions for each of those on the website. Okay, so we've got all of our sources. We've got our 2 destinations that are on 2 separate pieces of media, and we're going to go ahead and set the schedule up. We're going to say add. We're going to do day of week, and I want to use Monday, Wednesday, Friday one on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I put check marks next to those, and I just want it to go at 10 p.m. I click OK. I go to add, day of week. I want to run my Tuesday, Thursday one on Tuesday and Thursday, so I change this drop-down menu over here to Tuesday and Thursday, and just click OK. And then I click OK again. And I'm going to go to options, and I'm going to turn on data compression because I want to compress the data before it gets written to disk. And that's pretty much it. I click OK. And if I go to Activity Monitor and I go to the Scheduled tab, it'll show me that it's rotating between these Tuesday, Thursday, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday sets. And I can have, I could have written to 2 USB hard drives or 2 NAS devices or a combination like I did. And when I'm using the one that writes to the NAS device, I probably would want to disconnect my USB hard drive so that it's not connected to my computer on those particular days. So if there's malware or something, that disk is not going to get infected because it's not plugged in on those specific days. Now, in terms of getting the data off-site, I can use what's called a backup set transfer script. So I can go to Automate, I can go to Manage Scripts, I can go to New, and I'm going to create a backup set transfer or transfer backup script, and I'm going to call this one Offsite Transfer. And my source in this case, and it could be either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Tuesday, Thursday one. And I want to store this one out on the cloud, and so I'm going to choose this. And so what it's going to do now is when I set up the schedule, it's going to copy all of the contents from Tuesday, Thursday into my offsite cloud set. And we're going to do this on a schedule. The very first time it does it, it's going to copy all the data. Each transfer after that only copies the files that are new or changed since the previous transfer. Now, in my case, maybe I don't need to put everything on the cloud. So I can use one of the Retrospect filters, and I can say I want to do documents and settings only. And so I'm saving storage space on the cloud, and I'm saving time by not transferring everything. I don't need to put my operating system data necessarily up in the cloud. Maybe I only care about user-created data. And so that's where I use the documents and settings filter. And I'm going to go ahead, once again, I'm going to turn on data compression because I want to compress the data before it goes out to the cloud. And then I can set up a schedule, and maybe I only want to run this on Fridays at, 11 p.m. or something. And then this will transfer my data from my Tuesday, Thursday set every Friday up to the cloud at 11 p.m. And so now if I look at the schedule, we can see Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then cloud. So were there any questions in there, Werner?
Yeah, so sorry, there was one that was, in the future, will we be able to write to 2 tape drives at the same time? So like a multi-threading scenario.
You can already do that. If you have the advanced tape support add-on for Retrospect, you can write to 2 tape drives, but it has to be 2 sources. So source 1 goes to drive 1, and source 2 goes to drive 2. We don't support the ability to stream, drive 1 to 2 tape drives simultaneously. We might add that support in the future, but we don't have that currently. But we do allow you to write to 2 tape drives. So you could, if you wanted to, you could take your Tuesday, Thursday and write it to tape drive 1, and you could put your Monday, Wednesday, Friday to tape drive 2. That would be one method you could use for getting the data offsite.
And the other question was on a Mac version, it would be called copy media set, correct? For what you were just
Yeah, so if I bring up the Mac just real quick, this is the Mac version. I would go to scripts and I go to add, and there's a copy media set script over here. And the copy media set script is basically the same thing. If I choose my sources, whatever the media set is as my source, whatever media set I want to use as my destination, and then I go to schedule and I add a schedule and tell it when I want to run this schedule. So it's basically the same thing. And I don't need to save that. And then, as Werner mentioned earlier, I don't know if I've still got it, you know, as these things run, there's a Retrospect management console. So if you go to console.retrospect.com, it will show you in real time these backups and transfers that are running. You'll see them under the little activities section inside the management console. Any other questions, Werner?
Nothing yet, no.
Okay. Yeah, I really don't have a lot more to show. I just wanted to give a high-level overview of what this, you know, 3-2-1 sort of strategy looks like. And we literally created a 3-2-1 strategy in under 15 minutes. And that was, you know, so it was very easy to set that up.
Yeah, yeah. One question did pop in, and that's the simplicity of this, the fact that we're able to kind of do the presentation and the demo here in, you know, literally 15 minutes. One question, does Retrospect support Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive? Are there any special considerations around utilizing the Deep Archive?
Yeah, so I'm just going to bring up, I'll just bring up real quick the knowledge base for Retrospect. And if you go to the cloud section over here, if you scroll down to the bottom here, there's a section for, you know, there's a section that talks about restore errors with Glacier. But if you look at the article for Amazon S3 over here, there is a specific section for Glacier, and it talks about what settings you need to utilize for Glacier. We can't restore the data directly from Glacier. You have to bring the data back off of your Glacier archive before you can do a restore from Glacier backups. But we do cover that in this article specifically. Some of the screenshots are a little bit out of date because Amazon keeps changing their interface and their settings, but for the most part, it is correct. And as we noted earlier, there's a large number of cloud services that are supported with Retrospect. And so if we go back to this little cloud section, you can see it's quite a long list of supported cloud services.
And another question was, somebody had missed how you assign the different script schedules to different destinations.
Well, when you're going into the schedule and you're looking at the backup script, the key is the script needs to have multiple destinations. And once it has multiple destinations and you're inside the schedule, there's a drop-down menu over here where you can specify what destination you want to use on what days of the week. So if this script had 5 destinations, this drop-down menu would show all 5 of those destinations, and I could pick which one I want to use on what days of the week.
Okay, and another question, did the media set create one very large file on the media? It's better to create smaller sets in case of media disk errors.
Well, what happens is when you're writing to a, and I don't know if I've got one on here still, but we'll open it up and look. When Retrospect does a backup, it writes the data in a custom Retrospect data format, and it does this in these 600 megabyte segments that are these .rdb files. So if I look at this one, which was an old backup of some Gmail data, I can see that Retrospect breaks up the data in these little 600 megabyte chunks, and that's how we store the data. So you're not dealing with one gigantic file on your backup drive, where this one gigantic file gets corrupted. In a worst case scenario, if something corrupted one of these 600 megabyte chunks, that's all you would lose in terms of your backup data. You could still restore from there everything else.
Another question, can you automate a restore script to restore an offsite backup copy to a remote readable copy of your storage?
Yeah, you can schedule restores. So under automate, and you go to manage scripts, you can go to new, and one of the script types is restore. And with a restore script, it's a matter of, you specify, which set you want to restore from, and then you specify where you're going to put the data, whether it's out on a client machine or a local machine, and then you can set up the schedule. So it doesn't matter whether it's a local backup or a cloud backup, you can schedule the restore if you want to.
And then just a general question for offsite, but generally speaking for cloud offsite replication, are we basically just transferring retrospect band files to the cloud storage in order to keep a copy of the active set there?
When you do a transfer, you're transferring every single individual file you backed up. You're not transferring the RDB data files, you're transferring the contents of the RDB data files. So every Word document, every Excel file, each one of those files get transferred to the cloud individually.
Another question, do you support backup of Hyper-V VMs?
The way this product works is that you can install either Retrospect or Retrospect client inside the virtual machine, and then we will back it up the same way we would back up a physical machine. We really won't know the difference. We will not be backing up the virtual machine data files. We'll be backing up the contents of the virtual machine the same way we back up a physical machine. We do have a whole separate product called Retrospect Virtual that will protect the virtual environment and the virtual machine data files. And that's a whole separate demo that we do about once a month.
But yes, and with the Retrospect Virtual, it'll back up that full image to be able to spin up the entire image. So, right, but again, different one, but we'll get you the information for that as well. Great questions, everyone. Any other questions for Robin? A few more. Okay, can you back up Ubuntu LTS machines?
We do support Linux. So if that's what the question is, when you go to the Retrospect knowledge base again, and you go in here, there's an article for Linux. So if you, there it is, which versions of Linux does Retrospect support? And you can go in here and there's a listing of the different versions of Linux that are supported with Retrospect. So you can have Mac, Windows, and Linux inside a single backup script. They can be all combined. They don't have to be kept separate.
Do you recommend using smaller hard drives or larger in terms of storage capacity? I've been using 10 terabyte hard drives in the past, but it takes nearly 3 years to fill. Yeah,
I prefer large hard drives. 10 terabyte hard drives, if you can get one for your environment and it fits your budget, I would highly recommend that because you can never have enough backup storage. If you spend almost the same amount of money on a 3 terabyte drive and you fill the 3 terabyte drive, you're just going to kick yourself for not having a 10 terabyte drive.
Are there any features in the Windows version that don't exist on the Mac side? If so, is there a migration cost?
I mean, the main differences are things like Exchange and SQL. Exchange, SQL, and disaster recovery, where you can create a bootable Windows recovery disk. Those features are not available on the Macintosh product.
And with that, some of this stuff is going to be changing moving forward, but at this point, right, and as far as the cost-wise, reach out to us or your sales rep or whatever, and we'll definitely see what we can about if you need to switch, if you need to whatever, we could definitely go over all the best options for you for that. And again, we'll be reviewing these and making sure that, we reach out to you to, get into details of any of the questions if you need to. Are there any features in the, that's what I just read. Is there the limitation of the Mac console 100 systems, the management console?
Repeat that question, I didn't hear it.
Sorry. Is the limitation for the management console 100 systems, so 100 backup servers?
I don't think so. I actually don't know what the limitation is in terms of number of servers that the Retrospect console can use. Werner can check in with engineering and respond back if he's going to be sending out an email to everyone. But yeah. I have never heard of a limit. But you're talking about backup servers. That means that you've bought 100 copies of Retrospect, or you've got 100 end users that you're managing as a reseller. Keep in mind that every version of Retrospect backs up computers on the network that are called Retrospect clients. And you could have, 100 or 200 clients on a single backup server. It's really a matter of how much time you have to get all that data backed up. We can run as many as 16 backups simultaneously with a single backup server. It'd be kind of rare to see an individual, organization that has 100 separate backup servers. Maybe the Retrospect Solo, you could have 100 copies of Retrospect Solo being managed by the management console, I suppose. That might be more common. Yeah, I don't know what that limit is.
Yeah, and I think I did read something, and you sometimes will have limits, like we'll say our single server does 200 workstation, whatever. There's truly no licensing limitation on stuff. That I think we just give a general rule as a guideline for the amount that you could comfortably utilize that management console for before it might be a good idea to start utilizing another one, just to, again, from the processing point of view and everything else. There's no hard limit is the case. So it really comes down to usage and what you're all doing with those 100 backup servers. Well, we do backups of all kinds of machines, Windows, Linux, Mac, works fantastic. Oh, thank you very much. Can you back up to Google Drive?
No, not at this time. Google Cloud, but not Google Drive.
But again, on the roadmap, premium version just offers open file and dissimilar hardware. That's correct. I can answer that one. So yes, the premium editions of our software basically include open file, dissimilar hardware, cheaper than buying them all separately. So when you're in a Windows environment, some of those, the add-ons, you're doing full system backups, both of those are kind of a no-brainer add-on solution. And so yeah, the premium editions include those onto the base license. Let's see, partial re-ask. See, if you want to use a disk to cloud arrangement where laptop clients are caught by local disk backup sets, but then those local sets are copy transferred to cloud later, can you go over the setup for that cloud part, or do I have that wrong?
Well, I mean, that's basically what I just did.
Okay.
You have 2 disk sets, and either you rotate between, it could be 1 disk set or 5 disk sets, and then you set up a transfer script to transfer that data out to the cloud. So that was essentially what this demo was.
And again, we have, so this was a very quick one from Rob. And again, we do have, we can definitely get you hooked up with additional one if you want to see that in more detail and everything else, kind of go over it. We have all sorts of video tutorials, all sorts of stuff we can hook you up with. So thank you for that. Let's see, I currently run separate scripts for each source, and each source has a corresponding destination. Is there a way to do that with a single script? If so, is there an advantage to doing that?
Yeah, one of the things that I did not show, which is a new feature of Retrospect 16, is called a storage group. So when you create a new backup set, and you use disk as the backup set type, or cloud for that matter, there's a box down here that says create a new storage group. And if you create a new storage group, then use that storage group as a destination, Retrospect will actually have the ability to separate each source into their own little mini backup sets that are all tied to the main root backup set. So that's one approach you can take. You can also take the approach that I took over here, which was, you've got one script with a whole bunch of sources. They go to one destination, and that will track them into one giant set. But if you don't want them to be in a traditional giant set, you can create this storage group, and through a storage group, it actually allows you to run up to 16 simultaneous operations to a single backup set.
Great. Can Retrospect backup Office 365 email accounts?
Right now we don't have full support for Office 365. It's something we're adding, but we do have IMAP email account support. So under, we'll just look at it under configure volumes, and under email accounts, you can actually add email accounts to Retrospect. And if I go to properties on this, you can see, basically credential information related to whether it's Office 365 or Gmail or whatever it might be. You can back up individual mailboxes through our email IMAP option. But no, Office 365 full support is coming.
Yes. And how do you handle laptop backups where the user moves from wire to Wi-Fi on the same network?
For the most part, Retrospect should be able to handle it. The Retrospect client will refresh itself and find what the current network adapter is. You would want to utilize proactive backup scripts. The proactive backup scripts will look for machines on the network that have not been backed up in the longest amount of time and give those machines a higher priority and grab those machines first. It'll detect a machine that's plugged itself into the network and then grab that machine. But switching between Wi-Fi and wired networks, for the most part, it does work. Most customers do that, and Retrospect clients should be able to recover and find the new network adapter automatically.
Does it work with Exchange servers like Intermedia?
Well, we support Microsoft Exchange. I don't know what, maybe I don't fully understand the question, but we support Microsoft Exchange up to Exchange 2019.
So yeah, if that's running off Microsoft, then yes. And again, we'll look into the detail of that if there's something other than that, or please add to. Another question: is there a better option available to back up PostgreSQL databases than the script solution with OpenFile add-on?
The option that there's a specific article in our knowledge base about it, and that is the best option at this time.
Yeah, again, the OpenFile will back up the data, but it's not going to be database aware, so you're going to have to recreate all that.
Yeah, so there's a specific article for PostgreSQL, and you have to do some scripting and things like that.
Let's see. Question: it's been my experience if a backup script is running during working hours, the file that is specifically being backed up is not able to be accessed by the user. Is there a workaround for this?
I have not seen that so often. It may depend on the type of file, and it may depend on whether you're using the OpenFile backup add-on or not. For the most part, it's going to be controlled by Windows. We just send a copy file command, and if Windows won't allow the file to be copied, that's really outside of our control. Or if it won't allow the user to open the file, that's going to be outside of our control.
I'm constantly backing up while I'm working and doing stuff, and never had any lack of access and stuff. So
yeah, either have I.
Yeah. Let's see. Are there any issues with working behind a Cisco firewall where the backup up server is behind the firewall and the client is outside the firewall?
As long as you have port 497 open for UDP and TCP, then Retrospect should be able to communicate with the Retrospect client through a firewall. So just make sure port 497 is open for TCP and UDP, then you should be fine.
And isn't there a different port for the remote clients if they're like remote in the network or whatever as well?
Yeah, there may be one specific port related to remote backup, and that's if you're using the remote backup function.
That allows you basically
to
utilize
port 220. Yeah, port 22024 is the additional port.
So. Excellent. Any other great questions, everyone? So you're testing Robin here. So any other questions right now? And again, you have a contact information, so always you can email sales@retrospect.com, call in, reach out, text us however you want to. We'll can definitely answer any additional ones as we go along.
Yeah, and I've got a meeting coming up, so I need to drop off our call.
So any last questions real quick? If not, I will be sending out the email, we'll make sure that you guys have the link for this, the presentation, and we'll have the winner of, I'll just do a random number generator, and we'll pick out the winner of the SQL Server Premium license. So I appreciate you guys all taking the time. Robin, thank you very much for the demo. And look forward, got a lot of great things coming up this year, a lot of new features. No, thank you very much. So appreciate you guys. And Robin, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I think that's it.
Yep. Stop recording.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, you're welcome.